U.S. to host Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict talks. News of Washington meeting comes after Biden accused Trump administration of disengagement from the crisis. The Trump administration is seeking to mediate a solution to the deadly conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh as it tries to pull off a foreign policy victory ahead of next month's U.S. elections. The news that Mike Pompeo, U.S. Secretary of State, will host the foreign ministers of warring Armenia and Azerbaijan in Washington on Friday comes after Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden criticized the Trump administration's passive disengagement from the crisis. Fighting for control of Nagorno-Karabakh, an Armenian-run enclave within Azerbaijan, erupted last month in the worst clashes since a war over the territory ended in 1994. Hundreds of troops and civilians have been killed and tens of thousands of people displaced in 3.5 weeks of fighting, marked by the use of drones and heavy artillery against populated areas. Zorab Natsikhanyan, the Armenian foreign minister, and Yehan Bayramov, his Azeri counterpart, will travel to Washington after talks with Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, in Moscow on Wednesday. Attempts by Russia, the traditional power in the Caucasus, to end the fighting have been unsuccessful, amid strong support for Azerbaijan from Turkey. A Moscow-brokered ceasefire fell apart almost immediately and subsequent efforts to pause the conflict have failed. The U.S. has a positive role as a mediator. As a superpower, they can have influence, Varishan Nersesyan, Armenia's ambassador to the U.S., told the Financial Times. He said the country expected the U.S. to exert pressure over Turkey, which he described as a full participant in the war. The United States as a leading member of NATO also can put pressure on Turkey to immediately stop this aggression, Mr. Nersesyan said, adding that he wanted Turkey to withdraw terrorists and military equipment from Azerbaijan and stay neutral. Turkey has denied sending Syrian mercenaries to support the Azeri military, despite claims to the contrary by middlemen who say they have helped with recruitment. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has offered vociferous support to Azerbaijan's military campaign, while Ankara has supplied Turkish-made armed drones to the Azeri armed forces. Mr. Pompeo last week called on the warring parties to implement a ceasefire and stop targeting civilian areas, but since then has appeared to endorse Armenia, which has a defense treaty with Russia, against Azerbaijan, which the U.S. and Armenia accuse of benefiting from support from Turkey. We're hopeful that the Armenians will be able to defend against what the Azerbaijanis are doing, Mr. Pompeo told WSB Atlanta radio station last week, pointing out that Turkey was increasing the risk by stepping in to provide resources to Azerbaijan. Third-party countries should not be coming in to lend their firepower to what is already a powder keg of a situation, Mr. Pompeo said. Last week Mr. Biden accused the Trump administration of coddling Ankara. President Donald Trump has regularly praised Mr. Erdogan, despite rising tensions between the U.S. and Turkey over a number of issues. Mr. Biden said that since the outbreak of hostilities last month, neither Mr. Trump nor Mr. Pompeo has placed a single phone call to the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan, even as the region goes up in flames. He called on Washington to work with Europe to de-escalate the fight, then delegating the diplomacy to Moscow. Mr. Pompeo is due to meet both foreign ministers separately, although the ambassadors of each country to Washington told the FT they did not preclude the possibility of a three-way meeting. But Elen Suleimanov, Azerbaijan's ambassador to the U.S., said people should be realistic about the possibility of a U.S.-brokered breakthrough, and warned that he did not want his country to become a victim of a competition between the co-chairs of the Minsk Group, France, Russia and the U.S., which has spent decades trying to mediate a solution to the long-running conflict. It's not about the U.S. being more successful than Russia or Russia being more successful than U.S., he said. Mr. Suleimanov said he wanted to see other members of the wider Minsk Group, which includes Turkey, become more involved in resolving the crisis. Mr. Erdogan has voiced skepticism about the value of a ceasefire, and cast doubt on the motivation of those seeking to secure one. The West is not on Azerbaijan's side, he said on Sunday as he accused Western nations of supplying weapons to Armenia. Russia, the U.S. and France would not give back our Azeri brothers their own land. May God help them in this effort to reclaim it. I believe that they will save these lands from the Armenians. Thomas D. Well, an expert in the region at Carnegie Europe, said the U.S. has been too disengaged on this issue to exert any serious influence. The momentum is now all behind Azerbaijan's military operation on the ground, he said, adding that even Russian diplomacy was struggling to respond. So I doubt very much the USA can offer anything, all the more so in the dying days of an administration. But if, as looks likely, the conflict worsens and the Armenians of Karabakh continue to suffer, there will definitely be a huge outcry from the large Armenian American community. U.S. State Department, which has yet to confirm the meetings, did not reply to a request for comment.